Bruce, MD, the celebrity doc from Chatters That Matter. You have asked me and asked me so many questions about my hair. So today I am going to do a hair video to talk to people about my hair, um, to tell you some of the pet peeves of Black women with hair. And I mean, hair is a big thing for Black women. There have been lots of songs written about it. I am not my hair. I mean, just it's it's a big deal when it comes to hair. And this particular recording is not just for Black women. This is for everybody because I get questions from everybody about my hair. So, Black women, you know who you are when I'm talking about my hair and the details apply to you. Everybody else, you know who you are when I'm answering the questions or telling you something maybe that you should know but don't. But this particular recording is for everybody, and today's recording is all about hair. As you can see, I'm sitting here with my hair wrapped in a towel, so that means that I just washed my hair. And so here we go. I'm unwrapping it. A lot of people have asked me about my locks and how to care for locks and such. The first thing I'm going to start out with is just a little bit of an education about locks. People, these are sister locks. These are not dreadlocks. Every lock that you see is not a dreadlock. Dreadlock are specific locks, and they were named for a specific reason. They were named dreadlocks. They were called dreadlocks. They weren't previously called dreadlocks when we were uh, in Africa and in our native places of existence. They were not called dreadlocks. These got named dreadlocks during the Middle Passage when slaves were bought and brought to different places, the United States, the Caribbean, etc. And during that passage, they were not able to care for their hair properly. So their hair matted together and formed big clumps. And the people bringing them over said that they looked dreadful and they started to be called dreadlocks. So don't ask me about my dreads. I don't have dreadlocks. These are sister locks and they're not matted together. This actually takes care to get my hair to look this way. So again, these are sister locks. They're done with a sister locking tool. Looks a little bit like crocheting when you put this lock together. 4 passes, 4 turns. There are lots of different types of locks, box locks, twist locks. All of them have different characteristics. And again, these are dreadlocks, tiny locks. These are actually about 3 or 4 times as big as they were when I started them. When I started them, there were over 1,000 locks on my head. And when I started to do them myself, I decided that was way too many and started to put them together. Then, as I went and had other people doing my hair, they also decided that it was way too many and they put them together too. So now they've come to a lock that's approximately this size, which is a little bit thicker than I want these locks. I really liked the micro locks, but this works. And the reason I like the micro locks is because I could treat it like my regular hair and style it just about any way I wanted to. I can still style these just about any way that I want to, but um, they don't manage just as hair would be if it was just in single strands. Um, and I'm looking at my hair and not real happy with what I'm seeing because what you see now is probably less than a quarter of what it was when I first started. My hair is naturally extremely thick, and I'm looking at the thinning that has occurred. For those of you who don't know, I have leukemia and had been in cancer treatments and did get some thinning from the treatments, quite a bit more thinning than I thought that I had. But I consider myself very fortunate because I did have a full head of hair, so I still have quite a lot of hair on my head. Um, I've just finished washing my hair, and I will do another video tutorial on how to wash sister locks. The answer to that question is that yes, when we wear locks, we do wash our hair. A lot of people have this misconception that people with locks never wash their hair, therefore their hair must be nasty. No, we do wash our hair just like everybody else. Um, Now, I don't wash my hair every day. Um, and the reason for that is that a lot of people with curly or coily hair have drier hair. And so we don't need to wash it as often as people who have oily hair. I had a roommate at one point in time who she was Caucasian and she had very, very oily hair. And she absolutely had to wash every single day, or her hair was just a flat, greasy looking mess. Um, I know other people who have straight hair, but it's not so oily, so they also don't have to wash every day. The oilier your hair is, the more you have to wash it because obviously stuff will get caught up into the oil and stuck to the oil, and the oil itself will start to break down and will start to smell. So, no, I do not wash my hair every day. Yes, I do wash my hair. Um, One of the things about sister locks is that a lot of people believe that you can't put oil or anything on your hair. I do recommend that you do use a good oil after washing sister locks. We have to do what's called separating because the hair will stick to itself. And one of the things during the washing period, I wash it with hot water, um, just to help with the cleansing, cleaning oils and stuff. And what hot water does when you're washing your hair is it opens up the hair shaft. Hair shafts have what almost look like scales, and they're laid down. The tight more tightly they're laid down, the shinier and silkier the hair strand. When they're loosely opened up, the stickier the hair becomes. So when you wash your hair, uh, washing with heat helps to clean it, release all of the oils and such. And those hair shafts are open. It's like they're like louvers. The shutters open up. After you've completed washing your hair, to seal the shaft again, I shift over to cold water on the rinse, and that helps those louvers to lay back down. It's kind of like in the middle of the summer um, when you want to get a breeze coming through. You open the windows, open the shutters, but once the weather cools, those shutters get shut down. So that's what I do with the cold water. That helps to keep the hair from sticking on itself because when those louvers are open or the hair shaft is open, the hair is stickier and will stick to itself more, which makes it difficult to deal with. We get tangling and matting and such. So I do rinse with cold water after I finish washing the hair. I do condition my hair. Now, about shampooing, when I shampoo, um, when first getting locks, shampooing with oh, what do they call it? Oh gosh, I can't remember. Um, a clarifying shampoo. Shampooing with a clarifying shampoo releases all of the old oils and stuff that will keep the lock from sticking to itself. When I regularly shampoo, however, I do not shampoo with a clarifying shampoo. They're drying and they again do create more matting of the lock and keeping the shaft open and the little shutters open so that they're sticking to each other, kind of like those little stickers or like Velcro. So I do use a shampoo that has a little bit of an oil in it. I like to use the Moroccan oil shampoo, and I also use the Moroccan oil conditioner. I'm a big fan of Moroccan oil. So as soon as I finish shampooing and drying the hair, I dry the hair by just wrapping with the towel and kind of squeezing the water out of the hair. Um, Locks can be delicate, if especially like with the sister lock where they're interwoven. If you're twisting, it doesn't matter so much with a twist lock because that's how it's formed, as twisted. But if you have locks that have been interwoven and you go twisting them, you break some of those hairs. It actually can cause the lock to unravel. And even if it doesn't unravel, it is weakened. And as it gets weakened, you can see I'm getting ready to do what I call a big chop. I've cut my hair often. It grows like a weed when it's in locks, but you can see there are some areas where it's thinner than others, and that's because some of the strands of the locks have been broken, damaged, and so it causes the lock to thin. As the lock gets heavier, it pulls. I had an experience where I was blowing up an air mattress and got my hair too close to the intake valve of the air mattress, and it pulled on them and damaged some of the locks. So I'm getting ready to do a big chop, and what that means is right now my locks are cleaned down below my derriere, and I am actually getting ready to take my locks up to about here. So they'll still be long, they'll still be, down my back, but I want to give them a fresh start and make the locks look healthier. Plus, with the weight of the locks, having my hair thinned, it'll give my hair a chance to fill back in, plump up. The weight does put some stress on the hair follicles, so we're going to let it thicken up some, and we're going to take good care of these hair follicles. So one of the things that I do right after I finish washing is I massage my hair, and you see me touching my scalp, touching my hair, and that brings to mind a comment that I have, something that I really, really want to reinforce. And this is for those of you out there who are not Black, and for those of you who are Black and don't have locks. It may even apply to you a little bit, but I think most of us are pretty sensitive to the issue. So even if we don't have locks, we tend to pay attention to this. But my hair is an extension of me, it is within my personal space. So I have, and a lot of other Black people have, issues with you entering our personal space and touching our hair without our permission. This would be like a stranger up on the street coming and putting their hand in your face and touching your skin and saying, "Wow, you have really pretty skin. Do you wash your face every day?" Not cool, not acceptable. I don't want your hands in my hair without my permission. And interestingly, it is, but it's usually adults that do this. Children are very curious about my hair. They look at it, and I hear the comment to mommies all the time, "Mommy, she has doll baby hair." And they want to touch it, they want to see what it feels like. Children almost invariably will come up to you and say, "Can I touch your hair?" And my answer to that is always yes. It comes from a point of curiosity, it's innocent, and I actually find it charming, and I use it as a chance to educate the children, and I thank them for asking permission to touch my hair, reinforcing to them that it is important to ask permission before you touch somebody, even if it is their hair. And speaking of hair and touching somebody, people always say, "Oh, well, once it comes out of your scalp, hair is not a living thing." I tend to disagree with that. This hair may be dead in terms of it's not feeling anything, but I still think that it is very much a living thing in the same way that rocks are a living thing. Hair carries energy. So whether it's the hair that's in the shaft coming out, which is clearly alive and being fed and such, or it's now exited the scalp and is out here. It's not being fed internally, but it is still very much alive. It still carries an energy. We each have an energy, and everybody has a different energy. And some people have what I perceive as a negative energy. Some people have an energy that I don't want to embody. So I may not want you to touch my hair. And even if you ask me, I may ask you not to touch my hair because I don't want to embody or internalize or connect with anybody's negative energy. I also may ask you not to touch my hair because I may not be feeling like I want my hair touched. Um, so it is important to ask somebody for permission to enter their private space, and your hair is very much within your private space. So please, if you run into anybody that has an afro or that has locks or has anything that you may be curious about, don't put your hands on their hair. If they're wearing pink hair, you don't walk up and, oh, I like your pink hair. You compliment them, but very seldom do you approach people like that. Um, Someone may have straight, shiny hair. I've never put my hands in their hair and said, oh, your hair is so shiny. I don't have a right to that kind of access unless they give it to me. So that's just a little rant, a little bit of education. No, in general, we don't want you to touch our hair, but in the case you want to educate yourself, you want to see what it feels like, fine, ask. Chances are, if you ask, we're going to give you the permission if it's in the genuine interest of educating yourself about the hair. Chances are we are going to give you permission, but please do ask. Now, part of the process that I go through after I wash my hair is moisturizing it and protecting it. So again, I like the Moroccan oil products. This is a product that absorbs into my hair, gives it a lot of moisture, and it smells extremely good. Now, some people who, again, are working with locks will tell you not to put oil in your hair if you have locks. And I would kind of like to correct that. I think it's very important to put oil in your hair. If you have locks, it helps to hold the moisture into your hair. It helps to prevent the locks from drying out and becoming fragile. I do think, however, that you need to be careful with what kind of oils that you're putting into your hair because a lot of oils are artificial oils and they're made with petroleum and such, and not things that really should be in our hair, are not healthy for our hair. And these things will absorb into the lock and they will get stuck in the lock and they don't come out of the lock again. And so the lock becomes heavy and the lock core can be damaged. And then you get a lot of breakage. But to prevent breakage from dry hair, I always make a point of immediately after I wash, I do put some oil in. And again, massaging the hair to stimulate the scalp, which makes its own natural oils as well. And one of the effects that massaging the head has is it increases the blood flow to the scalp. Increasing the blood flow to the scalp helps to nourish the hair. And this is one of the reasons why, as we age, we start to lose hair because as we age, our vascular system may not be working as effectively. And we need those blood vessels to deliver oxygen and to deliver nutrients to the scalp. As those vessels start to narrow, we start to get a little vascular dysfunction. Things aren't working as well as we age. Nutrients may not be delivered as effectively, and oxygen may not be being delivered. And so we do get thinning of the hair for that reason, amongst other reasons. And part of the one of the other reasons, again, when we talk about nutrient delivery, we also tend to have less nutrient absorption as we age, and again, that diminishes the nutrients that are delivered to the hair. So I've massaged the scalp. I've rubbed some Moroccan oil into the scalp. The rest of my hair needs oiling as well, um, because it also gets dry. And because of the length and the thickness of my hair, I actually end up using quite a fair amount of oil, lots and lots of hair. And so that is one of the comments that people come up to me, especially people who have locks, are starting locks, um, or they're having trouble managing their locks. They often will come and ask me how I manage the locks because they look so healthy and fresh. And that is one of the big keys to how I manage these locks is I make sure that I keep them nicely oiled so they look fresh and healthy. They don't look dry and dusty and dead. Um, Having the oil on them makes them more manageable, makes them pliable, and actually strengthens them because they're not brittle. And as you see, I am rubbing the oil thoroughly through all of the locks. Doesn't work to just kind of put it on the top, the outside, because you have all of these locks underneath inside that also need that oil, need that care, need that management. And so I just keep going down the full length of the hair until I've managed to catch all of the strands. And obviously, I'm not going to catch every single strand, but I'm going to do my best to try and catch as many of them as I possibly can. A lot of you ask how long I've been growing my hair, because obviously it takes a while to get this much length on it. And for those of you who have asked the question, is that all your real hair? Yes, absolutely. Every last bit of this is my real hair. I do not have any extensions on, and I haven't even had a lock repair where some of my own hair has been added to it. This is all my hair. It actually was longer than this, uh, or wasn't necessarily longer, same length, but I've cut it several times now. So that shows you just how much growth I've had. A lot of you ask how long I've been growing it, and I was saying just over 10 years, but I went back and kind of did the math on that because I was like, yeah, it seems like it's been longer than 10 years. Time flies by when you're having fun. And so once I thought about it, yeah, it has been longer than 10 years. It's been closer to 15 years that I've been growing it. But as I said, I've also had several chops, and some of them were bigger chops where I took it up higher, like I'm getting ready uh, to do. So that shows you that it has grown out considerably. And that knocks out one of the myths that people have about black hair. You know, people always say, oh, black people can't grow hair, the black hair is fragile, and so it doesn't grow. The hair grows slowly. Now, granted, all of us, our hair does grow at different rates. Some people grow hair faster, some people grow hair slower, but black hair does grow. The problem with black hair is because of the way that we treat it, it often will break apart. And I did not bring my scissors down with me, didn't think I would need them. But this is kind of an example of what I was saying. You can see here, or maybe you can't, I'll hold it out here. This is two different strands uh, from a lock. And these strands actually were put together earlier. And so this is one strand up above. But you can see that they came from two different strands. Well, during the process of washing it, these strands have tried to rejoin each other. Those shafts are reaching out, and you can see they're kind of connecting together there, trying to pull together. You can see there's kind of a bridging strand where they've reached out and bridged to each other, and even down lower, this is fully trying to lock itself into one lock. So what I'm going to do is just kind of twist here. Now I have a phone call coming in that I have to take, so I'm going to go ahead and take this real quick. Hey, Christine.
Hi, Cheryl. The lady's here. You want her to check your yard out too.
Um, Let me see where the dogs are. Okay, I think all of the dogs are inside. How long is she going to be there? Because I'm a live
Well,
stream.
okay. Well, she's coming back in middle of June because I recommend to wait till middle of June to cut my trees. So you want her to do it then?
Yes, yes. Let's have her do
Okay.
that. If she's coming in the middle of June to do your trees, then I'll have her do
Okay.
mine at the same time.
Okay. So I'll keep you posted.
Okay, sounds perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Okay, that is my neighbor. She's having her trees done, and mine definitely need to be done. They're absolutely beautiful out there, and I don't want to do them, but we do have a neighborhood association, and they say that the trees can't hang over, and all of these rules about the trees. Plus, they're palm trees, and so they're hanging low, and we want to take them up a couple of branches so that we have clear walkways, but we also are going to try and keep them reasonably low because we're getting wonderful shade from them. I live in Las Vegas. It is hot as all get out here, and that sun coming directly overhead. It isn't even so much the heat as the intensity of the sun. If you go out there, standing for just a few seconds, nobody in Vegas stands in the street and has a conversation, because if you stand out there for just a few seconds, you actually feel the sun burning your skin. So we actually like having these palm trees that are just really big fan trees. They're beautiful trees, and they are creating some very nice shade in the yard, kind of like a tropical oasis kind of thing. So we're going to have them trimmed, but we're not having them cut way back, and we're going to enjoy our shade. Excuse me for a moment. A little bit of a drippy nose going here. Now, back to the hair. We were talking about how those two were bridging, and I went on and rolled them so that hopefully they'll go ahead and fully stick to themselves. Now, I've coated the hair with the oil pretty much from root to tip. And then what I'm going to do, and this is a really important part of lock care, once you've washed, again, immediately I go ahead and put a little bit of oil on at the roots and kind of rub it through. And I'm taking my fingers and I'm kind of combing through right from the outset, doing what we call separating the locks. Separating the locks is really important so you don't get that sticking together of the locks. And so I will just take each lock and I will separate it with my fingers and make sure that it's not stuck to another lock. Now here you can see I have a little short lock. This is a baby lock and it's growing out. It's growing out pretty quickly. And this kind of shows you how quickly my hair grows, because this is, I think this is about maybe 4 to 6 months worth of growth. This is just a little baby lock. And these baby locks start in a couple of different ways. Sometimes, if the area is thin, as the hair grows in, it will just start to lock on its own, and we'll have these little seed locks, and they grow into the little baby locks. And usually, when that happens, I will just twist them as they're coming out and keep twisting them until they're long enough to easily put a sister lock in, getting the needle in and out and turning it with ease. and then I'll let a sister lock go ahead and form. That's one way that we get these little baby locks. Another way to get the baby locks was kind of a stupid thing that I was doing. Sometimes the lock will get a little fuzzy looking and there will be a lot of hair sticking out of it that is outside of the lock. It is not a natural part of the lock. Um, Now, what I do is I try rolling those into the lock and just, twisting them back into the lock, retwisting, retwisting until they finally capture and stick to themselves. And that way, that keeps the integrity of the lock. What I was doing before, what I sometimes still will do a little bit of though, is if it's, particularly sticking out, then I'll go along and trim it. Now, there have been a few locks, however, where I've been going along and trimming, or when I'm separating, uh, I will go to separate, and I'll use the scissors to separate, and accidentally either cut the lock I'm separating or the one next to it. So then I end up with a little stub, and that is actually what happened to a couple of these. Uh, One of them was just a baby nub, and one of them was a stub lock where I accidentally uh, cut it, and so it ended up with a short lock. And I don't know what it is, but it seems that I have a propensity to do that more on this right side than the left side. I'm actually ambidextrous, so I can use both hands pretty equally, but was I might have even been a lefty initially, but definitely was switched to right as the main hand, which would make one think that I would be a little bit better at managing this right side than I am. But again, being ambidextrous, uh, it kind of doesn't matter. Sometimes the right's functioning better than the left, or vice versa. And I seem to get this right side when I'm going and clipping and screwing up. So I do have a lot more of these little nub blocks, nub blocks on this side. But I will let them grow. So that shows you though, 4 to 6 months of growth, how much that has grown out. The hair grows. What does happen with black hair, though, especially the coilier the hair is, the coils are going in one direction. And whether we're flat ironing, excuse me, pressing, rolling the hair, twisting the hair, however we may be manipulating the hair, if we are going in the direction opposite of the bend of the hair, that obviously is going to put stress on the hair. For example, this is my hand. My fingers bend in this direction. This is the natural bend. If, however, I turn around and decide I want the hair to bend the other way, or in this case, the fingers, and I try bending the fingers in the opposite direction. Now I have a fair amount of flexibility in these fingers and I'm going to get some bend, but at some point in time I have resistance. If I continue to bend these fingers in the direction opposite of their natural fold, guess what? They're going to break. The same thing happens with hair. If you are bending the hair in the direction opposite of where it naturally wants to curl or coil, it is going to make it more fragile, and it, like the fingers, it has a certain amount of flexibility that it will tolerate. But once you push it past that point, that hair is going to break. And so that is a lot of what happens in the handling of black hair. We're trying to push it into styles and positions that is not inherently natural to the coil of the hair. And that causes it to be more fragile. Not that it's really fragile, but you're working against the strength of the hair. So it doesn't matter how strong something is. If you work against that strength, you can, at some point, eventually cause it to break. And that is what happens with black hair, particularly with the heating processes that we were using, trying to straighten the hair, straighten the coil, and again, even with the hair straighteners, the perms, again, straightening the hair, straightening the coil. Now, for a while there, Jerry curls were popular, and we have a lot of loosening processes, products that loosen the coil of the hair. And those are okay, they're much less damaging because they're not pulling that hair coil completely straight and working against the natural coil. But when you get to straighteners, whether it's by heat, that includes blow drying, or by chemicals, perms, those are going to weaken the hair as they break the bonds of the hair, allowing it to straighten out. So again, when we talk about breaking bonds, we are talking about breakage. Anytime you have breakage, you have weakening. So that is the reason that there is an appearance that black people have difficulty growing hair. We don't have difficulty growing hair. We have difficulty keeping it from breaking. So just a point of clarification. Now, again, I have already put oil onto my hair, but as I'm separating, I put a little bit more oil near the scalp. And again, I'll continue with the locks. And these are actually pretty nicely separated because I recently had my hair tightened. And so the locks are pretty tight, pretty close to the scalp. As time passes and the hair grows out, then I get more of the hair trying to attach to itself, and I get more of the locks being stuck to each other. So it isn't uncommon to have all of this loose, but then as you get close to the scalp, pieces of hair stuck together. Now, some of these here I have two that are attached to each other, and this brings a point that I want to make. I could separate these by just pulling on the hair, and they would separate, but that also puts stress on the hair and it tears the hair. And I don't want to tear the hair. That damages the hair and creates weakness downstream as the hair grows out. So I usually have a little pair of scissors, which I failed to bring down with me, and I'm not going to waste your time by putting space in there. Um, but I usually have a little pair of scissors, and I'll just clip the hair that's bridging in between the two strands. Now that one was just a one little thin strand bridging, and so I was able to break it with my fingers. And again, these are all pretty nicely separated because I just had my hair done a week ago, so there isn't a tremendous amount of growth here that is loose and attaching itself. And most of these, you can see I'm just kind of waving the finger through. They may be like one strand that's catching. And in that case, I will go ahead and separate them with my fingers because that isn't going to create any significant breakage. And it's not going to create any significant damage. Now, in terms of styling locks, when you're styling them, again, you want to be careful not to stress or stretch the lock. My nose is dripping. I'm allergic to Vegas. I'm allergic to the desert. I actually have dust mite allergies and such. So, Texas, Vegas, Arizona, any place where it is dry and dusty, I'm going to have the runny nose running and be plagued with the allergies. Um, but here, again, I'm separating. These are all separating out pretty easily. I oiled them really nicely. And just add a little bit of oil to the back. Anytime you're doing your hair, the hair that's underneath, the back of your head, those are areas that we don't attend to as well. So you're going to just add a little bit of more oil, do a little bit more massaging here, really get that worked in there. So, as I was saying, when styling the locks, you want to be careful not to overly stress them. And when I say not overly stressing them, I mean not overly stretching them. Because again, as you're stretching those locks, then you can cause the little interwoven areas to break. And when one thread breaks, that weakens that entire area because it's no longer interwoven, it's no longer interlocked. It is kind of the equivalent. I'm sure you've had the experience where you're wearing a piece of clothing, oftentimes a favorite piece of clothing, a sweater or such, and it catches on something. And it's just one thread of the garment that has caught. But when that one thread breaks, then it starts to unravel the remainder of the threads that were connected to it. If you don't do damage repair on that one thread, then what you find is a growing hole occurs. So the garment itself is weakened and often ruined if we don't attend to it pretty quickly to try and repair the area where that thread broke and it's unraveling. A lock too of this type, an interlock or a sister lock, because they are woven locks, um, then they will unravel. Um, in the sense of the lock, if it's truly locked, if it's an older lock and it's truly locked, the hair strands have now locked onto themselves and created one thick uh, solid structure. The lock isn't going to unravel per se. If it's a new lock and you break one of those strands, yes, that lock is going to unravel. If the lock is fully locked, it is not going to unravel, but it is going to weaken in the area where those strands are broken. Eventually, because it is weak, um, further stresses on that lock at that particular point will cause it to break. So you do want to be careful of that. Now, I haven't had it done before, but they can do lock repair. If you do have a lock that breaks and there's length on it, then you can collect that lock or keep the locks that you may be shedding and take them into a good loctician. And that loctician will be able to use your own hair to reconnect it to the lock that has broken, putting length back on it so that the hair doesn't start to get ragged looking. If the locks are evenly cut and growing evenly, then they look very nice. They look very uniform. As they start to break and become uneven, it starts to take on an unkempt look and you get a shaggy fraying look. Now, you see here, this is two locks that have been joined together. And here at the ends of them, you can see that they got joined at different points along the way. And the reason for that joining was sometimes because they stuck together, or like in this case, I had someone doing my hair who did not really know how to do sister locks. And you can see these original locks were very, very thin, and she didn't know how to do sister locks. And because they were thin, she felt like they needed to be stronger. And so she put these two locks together, and then she put these two locks together. Or actually, I think this was a different person that did these. So you end up with all of these little pieces of locks flying around. and these are barely connected. Um, I'm not going to do it right now because again, I'm missing my scissors, but this is not inside of the lock. And you have to kind of determine which lock is the central lock, which is the strongest lock. This little lock here is just kind of branched off of this main lock. And what I would do is just clip that little piece there, because as you're pulling the locks through to tighten them, all of these little pieces that are hanging out thicken the girth of the lock that goes through when you pull through, and it makes it more difficult to lock it. But it also, again, creates areas where you can create damage. So I would just clip this little piece of the lock off, leaving the one bigger strand. Then, looking up higher, kind of have to determine which is the main lock before you clip them off, and which is the stronger component. Um, and on this one, I'm a little bit unsure. It seems like this may have been the main lock off to the side, or this is one of I mean, it was once a main lock all in and of itself, but it seems like the strand is actually going this way. So I would probably, even though this is the longer of the locks, I would probably clip the lock somewhere up here. And that leaves a nice, straight, thicker, and healthier solid lock that will pull through. This lock actually will get cut a lot higher up, though, um, probably more like this, just because we're, like I said, we're getting ready to do a big chop and we're bringing it up to about here. That's going to eliminate a lot of those locks that are fraying. And again, let me see if I can find a good example of one. Uh, okay, see, I just pulled a piece. This was one of the other locks. That was a piece of another lock, and it kind of attached itself to that one. But again, you can see at the ends of this one, not particularly healthy, a little bit dry, a little bit damaged. So cutting the lock up higher will eliminate all of that and make for healthier locks. Um, I still can't find the one that I just saw. I found one that was, oh, let's see, here it is. Okay, so this is kind of a case in point. Here you have a whole lock, and here you see this area that has super thinned. And here's again where the healthier lock was, and even it has gotten damaged and is fraying apart. But you can see that several of the little strands of the locking broke and thinned, and so you have a lot of just wild loose hairs because they've broken out of the main lock, and it's very, very thin, very unstable. So this is one of the areas. If this particular area of thinning were up higher on the lock, we might cut the lock very high, and then we would use when we do the big chop, and there are a bunch of these locks that are left over that are actually healthy. We might take a lock like that that's very healthy and attach it, reattach it, reweave it in up higher where the lock is damaged. And that way we're able to maintain a consistency of the locks without having to do a chop every time we get some lock damage. Now, once you get too much lock damage, again, you're going to want to go ahead and cut it back to the area where it's healthy so it can continue to grow out healthy. And in this case, when I cut, all of these damaged locks are going to be cut off. But when I cut a lock like this one, which is very healthy, very long and very strong, I'll keep these in a bag just in case I get a damaged one. Then I can reattach it to the bottom of the shorter damaged one to keep the integrity of the look and the length. I have not done that yet, Haven't had the need to yet. So again, this is all original length that you're looking at. And again, that goes to show you that black people really can grow hair. And obviously, it's quite long. So it goes to show you that hair really does grow quite quickly. Sister locks is one of those styles that, because it prevents the hair from breaking, excuse me, because it prevents the hair from breaking, it does allow you to get length pretty quickly. And for those of us who have hair that grows really fast, it allows length to come exceedingly quickly. One of the disadvantages of that is that I do have to get my hair tightened a little bit more often. So for some people, they may be able to get it tightened every 6 to 8 weeks. Some people are able to get away with even 2 or 3 months. I would not advise going out anything past 2 or 3 months, even if your finances are kind of funny and you're not going to be able to get to a stylist, then I would recommend that you learn how to do the locks at least at a basic level so that you can do a little bit of your own tightening if necessary because of financial reasons or because you're traveling and there's not a loctician around who can do it for you. You've moved to a place where there isn't a loctician. It's a good reason to learn how to do it yourself. Doing it yourself is not a fun thing because it does take a while to do, and particularly as you're trying to do the back and such, you're going to have your hands above your head when you're doing it yourself. You can't do it as quickly. So, what could take a loctician 2 to 4 hours, mine is very thick, it's very long. It takes mine 2 to 4 hours to get it done. And she's fast, she's a good loctician. Um, if you have this much hair and someone's slower, it could take 5, 6, even more hours. Um, but you don't want to allow it to grow out too much so you have a lot of hair with a lock hanging off of it, because you are going to end up getting some damage. If you do have to let it grow out a little more, though, what I would recommend, again, making sure that you keep it well moisturized and making sure that you take a large tooth comb and just kind of from the base comb through. You can initially do it with your fingers, but from the base, excuse me, comb through and make sure that you keep it separating even at that point. Each lock will have separate band of hair separate out even there so it's not locking together to hairs outside of what will become the lock when you tighten. If you all can just excuse me for just a moment, I am going to go and get myself a little bit of water. Combat a little bit of the dryness. And the water was for me to drink, not for my hair. But it reminded me while I'm here, this is ESF. This is Epic Savoir Faire olive oil. And it is an extra virgin olive oil, but this particular one that I have is an extra virgin oleo nuovo, which means that it is as high in phytonutrients and antioxidants as an olive oil is going to get. This is a premium olive oil. I love this olive oil because this is my signature olive oil, Epic Savoir Faire. extra virgin olive oil. And the reason I mention it right now is not just for promotional purposes, because it's mine, but to mention that while you can buy a commercial oil like the Moroccan oil, you can also use olive oil or plant oils on your hair. I like olive oil. I like avocado oil, your nut oils, jojoba oils, different oils like that are very nice for moisturizing the hair. I particularly like the Oleo Nuovo for the hair, and I'll show you kind of what this oil looks like. You don't want to pour too much of it out. There. Um, There we go. As it's running down my hands. And I am not going to put it on my hair since I've put the Moroccan oil on my hair. And I meant to show you before I rubbed it into my hands. But it is a slightly thicker green color, a golden green color, and that is characteristic of the Oleo Nuovo, which is again a higher grade oil, has more of the phytonutrients and such. The olives are picked at just a certain point where they're at their highest point, not the highest point of ripeness, but the highest antioxidant point. So the olives are picked at just a certain time to catch them at their peak for their nutrient value. I use the Oleo Nuovo. I use the Oleo Nuovo on my hair, but I also use it on my skin. A lot of you have remarked about my skin. My skin is smooth and even and healthy looking, and people have asked about what I use to keep it that way. And again, moisturizing is an important part of that process. And one of the things I do use on my skin is the high nutrient content olive oils. So, oleo nuovo, you can use it on your hair, you can use it on your skin. I'm very picky about what goes onto my face, and there are tons and tons of products, skin products out there that people use to rejuvenate this, that, and the other thing. I like to use the Oleo Nuovo. It has that high nutrient value, the high antioxidant value, and it puts the moisture into the skin. Um, and it helps to seal the skin to keep that moisture in place. It absorbs nicely, and people say, oh, if I use olive oil or something, it's going to make me look greasy. As you can see, I don't look greasy. It just kind of absorbs into the skin, moisturizes. The skin feels nice. It doesn't feel oily. It doesn't feel sticky, and it doesn't feel heavy. So that's one of the big secrets that I have for my skincare regimen, using the olive oil and particularly the Oleo Nuovo. And I also make sure that I get an adequate amount of those oils into my diet, into my nutrition, because it's important to build your beauty from the inside out. And skincare, uh, your nutritional status really reflects in your skin. If you're having breakouts, uh, if your skin is looking dull, if it seems unhealthy, if it's inflamed, chances are you need to look at both your skincare products, and even more importantly, you need to look at your diet. What are you putting in? And one of the things that I do recommend putting in is some high quality oils. And olive oil is one very high quality, high nutrient value oil. So I recommend highly that it's important to get oil in the diet in adequate amounts. And the more high quality that oil is that you put in, the more high quality the reflection of your body, what you're going to put out. And so Epic Savoir Faire, extra virgin olive oil, and olio nuovo. My line of olive oil, of course, I'm going to recommend it, but go ahead and try it for yourself. It's expensive. You get what you pay for. You're paying for the quality. This is not just a cheap oil that you buy off of the shelf. And it is not super mass manufactured for that reason. It's a single source olive. It is growing in the central valleys of California, certain climate, certain temperature. Um, it is picked, hand picked, not machine picked, not shaken. Olives are a fruit. When olives hit the ground, they bruise. Bruised fruit do not create a high quality olive oil. So all of the olives are handpicked. They're immediately transported to be processed. The oil is cold pressed. And again, it's just a single source olive. A lot of the olive oils on the shelves have multiple sources of olives coming from different places. It's a single source olive. It is fully organic. I know because I have been to those olive groves. I used to live in the area, and on my own property, I had um, olive trees that were from the same sourcing. These trees came over when the missionaries came over, and the missionary mission San Antonio San Antonio de Padua was the one that brought these particular trees over. So, we know what the sourcing for these olives are, and we make sure that we're only using the best and we're using the best processing. So, shout out to Pam and Dan from Dolce Paradiso. Uh, Love you. Thank you for such a high quality um, product. But anyway, um, olive oil, great for the skin. Definitely can be used for the hair. If I'm out of Moroccan oil, I just particularly like the Moroccan oil. Part of the reason I like the Moroccan oil is the scent of it. But in the future, I may just be using my own Epic Savoir Faire and putting a little bit of essential oil in it to give it uh, a lovely scent. But right now, part of it is just convenience. Yeah, I'm lazy, so I do use the Moroccan oil. Um, and I think that I'm going to kind of wrap this up because I've pretty well separated everything out now, and I'm satisfied with the way we are looking. And I think that you will agree that my hair looks moist and it looks healthy. Oh, the one last thing that I will say, because I'm sitting here trying to decide if I'm going to style it, if I'm going to just leave it down like this, or if I'm going to put it up uh, in a ponytail on my head. You can style this. You can put it into different styles. I can put it up on top of my head. I frequently will wear it just kind of slung to the side. Again, a matter of convenience. And that's one of the reasons that I am kind of dreading cutting it because the sling to the side will still work when it's shorter. But one of the things that won't work is part of the convenience of the sling to the side is I will put it into a fat braid and I'll wear the braid slung to the side. Sometimes I'll split it right down the middle and I'll wear two braids. And I actually like that style. I didn't wear it a lot before, but I found that when I did wear it, a lot of people really like it. And particularly the fellows will often stop me and comment when I wear the two braids on how much they like it. It wasn't a go to style for me because as a little girl, I had a bush of hair. And so my mother would always put it in either two braids, or sometimes I had a third braid that came over across the side. And it was always really pretty. But I always thought of it as a little girl's hairstyle because all of the bigger girls had their hair out and weren't wearing it in braids. And so once I got old enough to really be doing my own hair and for my mother not to force me to wear braids, then I always wanted to have it out and very seldom even wore so much as a ponytail. But I find that now that I'm older and I am completely settled in who I am, I do gravitate back towards the one or two braids much more often. I frequently will pull it up on top of my head. Usually, I'll just kind of hang my head over so that it all hangs, and then I will. Let me see. I can kind of show you how I do that. Um, I just kind of hang my head over, get it all going in one direction, and I'm not going to make it really neat because I'm not going to wear it this way today. But I will get it scooped up onto the top of my head, like so. And then the beauty of locks is that I can use them to hold themselves. So I'll take some and I will wrap it around, and it becomes the hair holder. And I'll just kind of wrap it and keep wrapping it. And then I tuck it under, and it gives me a nice ponytail. So that's one of the ways. And again, not particularly neat, a little lopsided, and that's because that's not how I'm going to wear my hair today. I like to wear it in lots of different ways, and I've been wearing it that way for a few days now. So decided that I would do something different today. Still haven't decided what I'm going to do with it. Sometimes I'll pull it up on the side and can kind of roll it. Now, it's a little harder to do it when it's this long. When I cut it shorter, you'll see me wear it much more frequently this way, but kind of in a French roll. And again, it's a messy French roll because I'm not going to wear it this way, but I'll roll it into a French roll, and on the side it will look something like that, not that messy. And I'll frequently have a few strands hanging out to kind of frame the face. Sometimes I will braid it and I'll kind of braid it straight back and then just pull it up, gives me a sort of a bun. And then sometimes I'll pull it in the ponytail, like I showed a couple of minutes ago, but I will actually braid the top of the ponytail after I've wrapped it around. I'll braid the top of the ponytail and then kind of loop it over and take it around again. And it gives me, and you've seen it in some of my profile pictures previously, it gives me a high top knot that can be very elegant looking when I'm going out, especially if I'm wearing an evening gown or such, and I'm wearing high heels. I want to create that look of length and elegance, and it adds that extra height and gives you that more stretched out appearance. So it is a very nice way to wear it when one is going out. The updos are always quite nice when you're wearing a beautiful evening gown and you want to show off the back of the dress, or if you've got a nice plunge and you want to show off a beautiful back, whatever. But again, there are lots of ways that you can wear it, ways that you should be careful wearing it. This can be curled, and I have worn it in the kind of curly Shirley Temple sort of styles before. You have to be careful when you're doing that. When I'm doing it, I usually style that wet, and I will put it on one of those. They're kind of almost like a rubber twisty roller. I can't remember what they're called, um, but they're rods. And so I will just kind of lightly wrap the wet hair around that rod. And you're going to want to make sure that you have time for the hair to dry. I don't put a lot of heat in my hair, so I'm not sitting under dryers a lot. So if I'm going to wear it that way, I'll usually do it earlier in the day and let it dry. And I may even leave the rods on overnight. Wrap it completely around the rod without a lot of tension. And then you bend the rod so that it holds the curler in place. And then it dries around that rod and maintains that spiral. But you have to make sure that it is completely dry before you release the rod. So that is one way to get those spiral looks. What you don't want to do, you want to make sure that you don't wrap that thing too tightly, because if you do, then it is going to cause some breakage. When you're making the ponytail, you want to make sure that you're not pulling it too tightly, either pulling the ponytail itself up or the wrapping up, because again, it can cause some breakage. If you're going to put it on curlers, particularly if you're going to use the little foam rollers, if you use those foam rollers, the lock is going to start to pull into the foam and you may get some breakage that way. Two, don't roll them tightly. We have a propensity with that foam roller to roll it pretty tight to get the better curl. Don't roll it tightly. And really, I don't recommend using a foam roller like that, or a sponge roller, I should say. I don't really recommend using those. One of the things that I have used effectively is just some plain, ordinary newspaper or a paper bag, twist it, wrap the hair loosely around it, and then tie it on itself. Um, Cheap, dirty, and it's effective. So those are some tips on what you can do to roll it. I do not recommend using a lot of hair clips in the hair to clip it back. Um, you can use things like scrunchies, and they won't pull the hair, they won't cause much breakage. Definitely don't recommend rubber bands. But again, those claw clips and such, if you use those, make sure that they have rounded edges on it so that you're not cutting or breaking the locks as you're putting them in. And make sure that they have the wider teeth. Again, if the teeth are very close and you're trying to push them through locks, you can get breakage of your locks. So just be careful when you're using barrettes or clips or anything like that, that they're not causing breakage. Be careful if you're using beads or decorative items. Um, Beads are usually pretty rounded and they usually will go on without causing significant breakage. Um, those little metal clips and clasps, the little gold or silver pieces, they can. So be very careful when you're applying those to a lock that you're not breaking the strands as you're putting them on. And if you've put them on and they're the ones that kind of clip around the lock and you kind of fold them and tighten them that way, then make sure when you remove them that you fully open them and remove them and that you're not pulling them down the lock, because again, you can get damaged that way. So locks are beautiful, they're strong, the hair doesn't break easily when it is put into a lock, but they can be damaged, and particularly with a sister lock or a box lock, locks that are interwoven in some way. Um, if you break the strands of that interweave or that lock, then you are going to weaken your lock. So you just want to be careful with your hair care to not use styles that are going to create that stress and break the lock. Otherwise, locks are fun. They're a reasonably low maintenance way of wearing your hair. Doesn't take a lot of daily care. Now, it's not carefree though, because again, you have to get it tightened. regularly to make sure that you're not getting breakage. And you do like any other hairstyle, you have to keep it clean, you have to keep it moisturized, you want to keep it looking good. So that is how that works for those of you who had questions about the logs. If you have more questions, be sure to drop them into the comments. If this has been valuable, then let me know. This was kind of a longer taping. I think that for future ones, they won't be as long. We'll just break it up into little bits and pieces, and we may even break this one up for reposting. But I just, since I was doing my hair, kind of wanted to walk you through what I do and how I do it. And I love this style, Sister Locks. I wish I had done it sooner. Um, and for those of you who want information about Sister Locks, how to get them started, who to go to, what the process is, then be sure to leave some questions underneath, and I will be sure to respond to them. And I hope this has been educational for those of you who are not black and who had some curiosity about black hair, how we manage it, about the sister locks. Um, I hope that it's been educational for you in terms of understanding the culture of the hair and the propriety of how to interact with us with regards to your questions about our hair, your curiosity about our hair, and your desire to touch our hair. Again, if you ask for permission to enter our personal space, then chances are, you're curious about the way it feels. Chances are we'll let you touch it. Generally, I'm going to present it to you like this and let you feel what it feels like. I don't want your head on the top of my head. I'm not a dog. I don't want to be petted. But I do hope that that helps and makes you more comfortable in terms of interacting with us in regards to our hair and even interacting with each other. If you have curiosity about someone else's hair and want to question about it. Information about the products that I use. I hope that those are helpful. Again, I will put a shameless plug in for our olive oil, Epic Savoir Faire ESF olive oil. Definitely great for internal use. It's good for cooking. I love to use it for drizzles over pastas with salads. Definitely a highly tasty oil, delicious, nutritious, but your skin is your largest organ in your body and it needs to be well nourished too. Epic Savoir Faire is a good oil for nourishing your skin and for nourishing your hair. If you're interested in purchasing this product, Epic Savoir Faire, extra virgin olive oil, or oleo nuovo, you can do so by going to my website, thecelebritydoc.net, and that is TheCelebrity, D as in Delta, O, C as in Charlie, thecelebritydoc.net. And you can go over to our shop and you'll find the links to get to the olive oil there. Uh, if you have any questions about the olive oil, again, drop those questions below and I'll try to answer them for you. And go over, get an order. Olive oil is an oil that spreads out, so it doesn't require a lot of oil. Don't waste it. You only need a little. A little goes a long way. Again, this is not a cheap product, but you get what you pay for. It's a high value product. And again, you only need to use a little bit. to get that high nutrient value, that high antioxidant value. So on that, Epic Savoir-Faire, ESF, olive oil, and that is my spiel on sister locks and hair and skincare. I hope that was valuable to you. I want you to take what you can use. And if you're starting your lock journey, post some pictures up, send us, and we'll keep encouraging you as you go. And for those of you who are working with skin issues, again, Epic Savoir Faire, olive oil, happy to answer any questions you may have. You've been listening to Dr. Cheryl Bryant Bruce, MD, the celebrity doc from Chatters That Matter. And here it is. Have yourself an amazingly blessed day.